How did it make you feel? Like Aaron said that was embarrassing for him.
Yeah, embarrassing is only one of the many words. I felt like it made you feel less of a man. It made you feel inadequate. It made you feel like, okay, even though I'm paying the rent, I'm paying the bills at mum's house, I can't even satisfy my woman in terms of trying to show her that I can lead a household. She could see I'm paying the bills, but it's not the same as paying the bills in your own house. It's a very negative feeling. It doesn't always have to be, but the majority of the time, especially for me, it was very negative. Even though my mum was very happy with me being there, and the missus at the time was completely happy with it and comfortable, or made it look like that. You know what I mean? There's still a pressure that you like to apply on yourself as a man, and I just thought I need to find a solution to this. This is not good enough. And obviously, I got to late 20s now, one kid, still living at mum's, even though she wasn't living there with my son anymore. It's still, I just felt like I was very lost. Welcome to another Goodman Factory podcast. You have myself, Michael, Rizzy, and Aaron by my side. And today is about living with parents. So, guys, living with parents, what was the experience like for you two?
Parent. Like, it was always me and Mumsy.
Yeah. What was that like?
You know what it is? It's, for me, growing up, like, all the attention was on me. So I loved it. It was just, it's like a best friend, isn't it? Like, you get used to that. We had someone come live with us. There was a man that came to live with us at one point, but that turned a bit mad. Now it got abusive and all sorts. So I've always looked at it as I've been the man of the house. So yeah, I was at home with my mum until 34. So it took me ages to get my mortgage because I had to take advantage of it.
Yeah.
As well. As a man that had kids as well, I didn't want to move out and rent because I was like, if I move out and rent, the mortgage is probably never going to come. So I'd rather stay at home, take advantage of that, stack up. But yeah, for me, it was just...
I was going to say, so you was the only child?
Only child.
Basically.
Yeah.
You have like only child syndrome.
You know what it is? We got a small family. So, you know, in terms of moving out, yeah, it wasn't only child syndrome, but I felt that, I don't know if you man live with both mum and dad, but for me, it was like, where I'm leaving Mumsy on her own.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm leaving, and I've got friends like that as well, where it's just their mum's left at home and you feel like a bit of guilt.
Yeah.
So.
You still get that guilt till this day?
Like, I'll check on mum, like, I'll be down to mum's all the time, like, just, do you know what I mean? And mum will come up to mine. But I think there's something, I always say that every man should have their own. Even if you're like, I feel like knowing that my yard will eventually go to the kids is a blessing to me.
That's good. Love that. What about yourself, Riz?
Yeah, so I family, home, both parents. So it was literally just the three of us, including me. I had my brother, but he didn't come back after uni, stayed up there. Wish I played my cards the same way too. Because coming home was a bit mad after university, because it felt like there was like two kings under the roof, and you know, I think it's just natural, especially because I've heard it from many other people. Like when there's like two men in the household, there's moments where you know you can clash. But at the same time, I'm very grateful for the time spent at my household after university, because it brought me and my dad closer together. We had a lot of conversations which just helped me in life and prepared me for where I'm at now. So I'm grateful for the time that was spent at home, but at the same time, if I could go back and move out earlier, I would have done it.
But you went, did you say you went uni?
Yeah.
See, I didn't go uni. So
Right.
when you went uni, you stayed at your university?
I moved out.
So you had that kind of like feeling of what it would like being on your... I didn't get that until like late in life.
Right. I had the in-between as well. So I went to uni, but it was up the road from where I lived. So it was Greenwich, and I lived in Bermondsey.
Yeah.
So it wasn't my mum said, you're going to move out to uni? Impossible. She said, never. She said that I had to go to uni that was close, do whatever qualification I wanted to do.
Save money as well though, innit?
I think there was an element of son husband
Right.
in a sense. So I was the man of the house, but I was
So it's just
also
you
my
and Mumsy?
mum's. So me and my younger brother and my mum.
Okay.
But obviously, younger brother
Yeah.
does what he likes.
Yeah.
He's enjoying life, and I was the one that had to
You're the
set
protector.
pace. Yeah. So I'm the almost like the father figure. He probably would disagree, but like I was almost like the father figure. I was the one that had to do the uni, the jobs, the career, and everything else the proper way. And then my brother could, if he wanted to, follow in those footsteps.
Right.
But I think the main reason was my mom was very protective. She loves her sons, me and my younger brother, but she was overly protective. And if she can't see you as well, if she's not in arms, if you're not in arm's reach, it was very difficult for her to feel like she could protect you.
Right.
So almost an element of being sheltered in a sense. But also, going into the next point, I was going to say, you haven't got any kids yet, Reds. No. But your opinion on, what's your opinion on basically being, like you said, two kings under one roof? Having a child under your parents' roof is the point I'm trying to make. How do you think that would affect you? Because obviously I've lived it.
Yeah.
And I'll give my opinion in a second, but I just want to know what you think. Because a lot of people have an opinion and it's not necessarily what they think it is, but at the same time, you never know.
Do you know what? I think it would be the pressure of being managed by my parents whilst I'm raising my child. I can just imagine so many moments where my parents will be like, we know more than you, so we're telling you how to do things. And I'm like, don't tell me what I should do with my child.
Especially with my child looking.
I can just see like chaos, like we'll clash, like we would really clash. So I just can't imagine it.
That comes without having to live at home.
You think so?
100%. Like if I'm with my kids and my
Yeah.
mum's with me, yeah, like I've had to say to Mumsy before, like, Mum, don't do that. Like if I say like, boys, you can't have that, my mum would be like, yeah, but you've got to let them. And I'm like,
Yeah, she wasn't as lenient on.
yeah, but it's also like, Rare, you're down. My word is now underneath
Yeah.
yours.
Yeah.
So they're gonna be going to you rather than listening to their dad. And I think it's so easy for grandparents to take that role. Like, you know, we're the older ones, so we know what we're doing.
But it would be a lot worse if that was your permanent situation, as in like mum's always around to add commentary on everything you're doing.
Standing over your shoulder.
I just can't imagine it.
You know what? How I look at it is if I had to live at my mum's with a partner and child, it would have to be on the basis that this is for a period of time so that we can stack up and then move on. It couldn't be, oh, you know what, we'll just figure it out. Like, we would have to be, there's a plan to this.
Yeah.
Because, no, that's going to be stress. On the woman as well, that's stress.
Yeah. That was my situation with my first son. So we lived in my mum's house out of my room, which was like a box that you could fit a double bed in.
Right.
And
for how long?
It was just until whatever happens kind of thing.
Right.
But until she went back to her parents' house, which wasn't far away, it's like around the corner. It was stress. It was a mess. Like the power, the imbalance was crazy. I would now, for example, an example was I told my son that he's not allowed to have snacks because he has snacks all the time. The guy eats snacks only and no food.
No food, no dinner.
So one time I said no snacks today. He went, oh. He looked at me like, yeah? I didn't know that was the face that he was making. He went upstairs and asked my mum, and he came back downstairs because my mum has a secret stash of snacks that she hides from my younger brother.
That would drive me wild.
She gave it to her grandson. He then came downstairs licking the lollipop.
Emotional damage.
And you know what he said to me? Grandma said I can have this. You and grandma are going to get smacked today. Let's go upstairs together. He said, I'm sorry. But you know what I mean? It was very... So now I have to pretend I'm telling my mum off because my word is the final word. Grandma, yes, is my mum, but she's not your parent, bro. You need to behave yourself kind of thing.
But do you feel there's an element of though that you're not quite a man because you're at home still?
There is. And it comes with... How do I explain it? I feel like society basically tells you that you need to be out of the house, move out your parents' house. As a man, you need to move out your parents' house and establish your own household and control your own household and build from there. And I thought there was an element of, well, you're still a boy because mum still kind of does this for you, or you're still under mum's roof.
Mum's
Even
still doing
though,
the washing. Like,
yeah, you know what I mean? Even if mum didn't do the washing though, I can't explain it. Like if the fact that you're in her house
Yeah.
means that she basically does everything for you. And it wasn't necessarily that. It was just, you just want to be your own man in a sense. And yeah, mum was just always over my shoulder, always going, that's not how you clean a nappy. That's not, you shouldn't be doing that. Don't shout at my grandson. So do you want me to do, just stay on mute? But it's hard, especially I feel like in a lot of different cultures have different, let's say, power imbalances. But being a Nigerian boy,
No
my mum's
boundaries.
no, my mum will have all the boundaries, and my
No.
boundaries do not matter
Yeah, they don't
because they're
exist.
No
under, yeah.
boundaries.
She'll just come in, she'll knock and burst into the room.
That's my mum used to do that as well. My mum wouldn't. My mum wouldn't even knock.
It's part of
No, she would knock and open.
Yeah, it's the same
It's like,
motion.
what was the point of knocking then?
It's the same motion, honestly.
I know you're enjoying this conversation, but I'm here to remind you that this episode is sponsored by Goodman Beard Oil, plant-based, chemical-free beard oil to soften and moisturize your facial hair. Order now, goodmanfactory.com, and use code GPOD1 and become a good man today.
Do you feel like there's an age, like, not that you can pinpoint it, but like by a certain age you feel like we should move out as boys or as men?
Yeah.
And if so, what would that age be to you?
I reckon by 25.
You should be out of the house.
Honestly. But I understand. I think the thing that prevents people from moving out is I don't want to rent. I want to wait till I can buy a house, which I understand. But honestly,
25.
I know I know people and see people that have gone to rent and then they've then eventually gone to buy a place, which is harder. I understand, and you know people have different views on. I see renting as a waste of money, but I think there's power, true power, in getting out of the house as soon as possible and putting yourself into the real world, like a real environment that forces you to just make things happen.
You know, in Germany, they don't, but that they
don't.
actually rent more than
Yeah.
they buy. They hardly buy in Germany.
The majority of the people in Germany are renters. Yeah, that's true.
I suppose there is benefits to it
Yeah.
in some capacity, but because you don't need that big down payment.
Yeah.
But for me, I feel like 25 would have been it. You know what it was for me? It was not really. I didn't feel pressured, like I need to be out. Like having a child made me then feel pressured, but I also felt like I don't have the finances to move out.
That's the thing.
So how do I now move out? So I almost felt stuck. Like I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to move out. And it weren't until literally later in life when I started getting better at saving. And I think people can move out at a much younger age, but you have to have it in your mind frame from early. Like, this is my plan. I don't think you can wake up and be like, man's moving out, you know, like, I'm going to figure this out. Like, nah, it needs to be, all right, I'm 20 now, I want to move out by 23. And the next 3 years, you might just stack.
Build up towards
Definitely.
it. I was gonna say it nowadays for the younger generation, let's call it, to rent a room now in London is almost as much as it used to cost to rent a 2-bed apartment back in the day when I was probably their age. So I don't know. I don't know if there's a number you can put on it. I feel like if you're beginning a career, and that could be 25, that could be 30. But I don't know if I would say 25 because I'm 32 very soon.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking,
Young
if I was
fruit, man.
25,
Young fruit.
but
fruit,
if I was
you know.
25, I'd still feel like I didn't establish a career at that point. I don't know. So the finances wasn't there. I already had my first child. He would have been 2 or 3 at that point because I had my Rome at 23. So it was, I don't know. It's not necessarily. I wouldn't put a number on it. But like you're saying, the thing I do agree with is as soon as you possibly can, without killing yourself, without it being too difficult to the point where it's just a.
But I believe people should have the aim to move out as soon as possible, step into the real world. Because a lot of times, even till this day, I still question and ask myself, like, wait, how am I able to do this now? Like, how am I able to afford this now? And I could have done this straight out of uni. I just didn't do it.
Cheaper as well. You would have got so much.
Exactly.
If you
So-
bought early, you'll be boy.
Laughing, boy.
and I just feel like the funds were just being allocated somewhere else. So I feel like a lot of people aren't ready to give up on maybe a lifestyle or the certain things that they do or where their money goes towards, and they're not ready to allocate it to having a base away from your parents. Another thing is, I think that the whole attachment to the idea of living in London is something people just need to disconnect from as soon as possible. Like, leave the bird nest, like spread your wings and just fly away. Like, you can live on the outskirts of London and get a fast train into London. Like, you can't let expensive prices in London prevent you from
Progressing.
Like, I'm just gonna stay comfortable. And pressure makes diamonds. I'm a big believer in pressure makes diamonds. If you force yourself out and throw yourself, you're not gonna be homeless. There's always a way.
Especially in the UK.
In the UK, like, there's always a way.
I think balancing your finances is key though.
Definitely.
Because all of us from like 18 have probably got increases within like year periods. So that every 3 years your pay might go up or you might get a new job. But we often allocate, like you mentioned, allocating money. Often that new money goes on something else.
This is what I'm
Whereas
saying.
if you're on 25k and then you get put on 30k, if you just look at it as I'm still on 25k, that extra can now go towards the yard. But what we often do is we increase our spending. And then it's like,
More
I haven't got
dining.
money, you know? Like, you have, but you're just choosing to, you've got the latest iPhone now, £65 a month. Do you know what I mean? You've now got a car finance, £300 a month. Like, all of these things that you end up doing, rather than saying the house is going to be my focus, because I had phone, I had car finance, I had all of that. And I'm like, why didn't I just go for the yard?
Yeah.
But that's the thing. We'd all tell each other that. Well, I would have given myself that kind of advice. But I also feel like at home there was no, let's say, little red book where that told you this is what you need to do. For example, put money here for a house, or put money here for future investments, or even just your pension, so on and so forth. It was just save and move out.
Do you think that's because there wasn't a man around?
In my house, probably, yeah.
I personally feel like.
Really?
Yeah, I feel, for some reason, I feel like that is a very male role.
Do you know what? I agree. And the reason why I agree is because I have memories of my dad hinting to me that, you know, you're a man. And when I was your age, I couldn't wait to leave the house. I think it's that comfortability. It's so easy to just be comfortable at home, that there's no pressure. Like,
Because
you know.
mums can almost want you to stay.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, oh, you're my baby, you don't have to go nowhere, they make it more comfortable for you. And that can actually hinder you. Because you're like, nah, like, put pressure on me. Like, get me out this yard. Help me get out this yard.
Give me a small amount of time to leave, basically. Or you've got a year to get your finances on point and then move out and find your own place.
Another thing is, there are a lot of communities that are different in the way they perceive the whole being, like, children being at home. There are some communities that don't even push their kids away from the home. They're like, you're gonna stay here, you're gonna build your wealth, and when you're ready, you will move out. It doesn't matter how old you are. And the kids, you know, within that community don't feel pressured to be like, I have to leave. And then
until they find a partner as well sometimes, isn't
yeah.
it? Like,
Or even that they live in the house with their partner and they don't feel bad about it. It's just like, this is the smart thing to do. Like, why wouldn't we do it this way? So I think the community you're from, the culture that you're from, does play a part in how you perceive the whole idea of, like, living at home with your parents. I feel like within our community, it's almost seen as something to be embarrassed about. Yeah. You know, like, why are you still living at home? I remember when one of my uncles, I think I was like 26, and he was like to me, "You're still living at home." I was like,
and it's the way they say
the way he said it was like,
you're like,
roll it.
I guess I shouldn't be that.
I was like, okay, so you know, it's that pressure. After a while, that pressure gets to you. You're like, I need to move out. Like,
it's true. I was gonna say, I learned something about our culture the other day. Like, it's along the same lines, but my mum was like, as a man, you should not be living at your under the roof of your in-laws. So living, let's say you're with your missus and then you want to save money and you go to her parents' house. Mom said, impossible. If I ever see you do that, that's embarrassing.
Yeah, I totally
kind of
agree as
thing.
well. I actually
And
agree.
I get it, yeah. But I didn't know that was a thing. I just thought, like, especially in the UK, it's just everyone does that, and there's a mix of cultures and all the rest of it. But I would rather you live at mine with my mums, for example. Obviously, I've moved out, but I'd rather it that way around than the other way around. But my mum said you can never.
The both of you obviously don't have daughters. Let's say we had daughters now, and then your daughter's partner then moves into your house
No,
with
that's
you.
not happening.
He's looking at bang in his face. He's trying to shake hands.
Nah, like I don't want nah.
No, honestly, I can't imagine a man coming to stay at mine. Like, look at that. Huh?
Is that yeah.
I'll even look at my daughter like,
Is this
what? Is this your guy? Is this your
Is
guy?
your king?
Whose man's is this?
It's that feeling of I want to feel comfortable in my own place. Like
Yeah.
you're not my son. You're not my. I don't know. Like if my son was like, oh dad, can me and my girlfriend come and stay, like to save money? I'm like, no, because now I'm gonna feel uncomfortable if I just want to walk around topless or whatever. Like I personally feel that I'd encourage my son. I've already said it. Like he's 15. I'm like, one of the first things you should be focusing on is your own house. Even if you don't live in it, get in it, renting it out, like doing something. I feel like that can set you up. Because what I said, the majority of people in this world, or in this country anyway, are working in order to pay what? Their mortgage or their rent. If you remove that because you owned your property, your choice of work can be a lot more relaxed now. You don't have to have that pressure on you. So if you get to 30 and you know, I've already paid off my mortgage, how comfortable is life going to be for you after that? Literally. Most people are working into their 50s, 60s because they still got to pay off that mortgage. Like, I want my son, if my advice is from when you first start working, start saving, let's figure out a way to get you a mortgage early.
I was gonna say, I feel like it's part of our development as well as men, just moving out as early as humanly possible, and it allows you to be your own man. Like I always say, I've got 2 kids now. One was in the complete opposite end of the spectrum in terms of our living conditions, living under mum's roof. Mum was she's not evil dictator, but she was the dictator of that house. So she was just like, you can't do this, you can do that. Why are you leaving the heater on? Why are all the lights on? Even if it's night.
Toilet seats up.
You know what I mean? So things like that. And I've gone from that to having my child, but I was already in my new apartment with the current missus. So it's just a complete different, there's no pressure at all. It just feels...
And that's why I say it's important. I would say the earlier you move out, the better, because then you're in the real world and you know, like, I think pressure makes diamonds, like I said. When you're in the real world, you're experiencing life the way it should be, rather than that comfortable cushion that you're sitting on at home. You know, I think now you can say I'm a man.
I did feel embarrassed though, like to be in my 30s, still living at home with mum. I've got kids from relationships that haven't worked out. I'm like, oh, like what am I doing? Do you know what I mean? I felt like I was being judged or looked at, and I felt that pressure. But I always say being at home is not necessarily a bad thing if you can use it to your advantage. All right, you know what? I'm at home now. It gives me an opportunity to save.
To save.
Let me save. Some people have been in relationships and had to move back home because the relationship didn't work out. All right, look at the benefit. Save. But if you are at home,
comfortable,
and you are not saving,
no target, no goal,
that is where, to me, you're just missing a great opportunity. Like, you might have kids or you might not have kids, but if you are at home later in life and you're not with a plan, what are you doing?
As long as a plan's in place, I think that's very important.
The situation again that I was in, there was no plan. It just felt very vague. There was a lot of pressure. I like pressure, don't get me wrong, but that kind of pressure where there's no end goal, there's no light at the end of the tunnel. You're just living in that situation. You know your salary is not going to go up anytime soon. Your salary is also not enough. It's almost just enough to pay the rent at mum's house.
How did that play on like your mental? Like, how did it make you feel? Like Aaron said that was embarrassing for him.
Yeah, embarrassing is only one of the many words. I felt like it made you feel less of a man. It made you feel inadequate. It made you feel like, okay, even though I'm paying the rent, I'm paying the bills at mum's house, I can't even satisfy my woman in terms of trying to show her that I can lead a household. She can see I'm paying the bills, but it's not the same as paying the bills in your own house. There's a lot of different dynamics and a lot of different things or feelings that it makes you feel. It's a very negative feeling. It doesn't always have to be, but the majority of the time, was, especially for me, it was very negative. Even though my mum was very happy with me being there, and the missus at the time was completely happy with it and comfortable, or made it look like that. You know what I mean? There's still a pressure that you like to apply on yourself as a man, and I just thought I need to find a solution to this. This is not good enough. And obviously, I got to late 20s now, one kid, still living at mum's, even though she wasn't living there with my son anymore. It's still, I just felt like I was very lost.
They say comparison's the thief of joy, right? Like, I feel like nowadays as well, even as a grown man, I see like these young YouTube people, yeah, with so much money, and they got cars and they got this. And I feel like that adds a serious element of pressure. Like, rare, look, they're like 20 or 18 and they've got all of this and I haven't. And we can compare ourselves to people as if we should have that by now. Was you ever comparing yourself?
100%. Like, they say you shouldn't, but I'm not the kind of person that only focuses on comparing myself and then being depressed about it. For example, if I see someone doing better than me, my initial and my first thought is always, how do I get to that position? How do I even ask them, or can I get any advice from that person to get to that level? To get to that level. But in terms of when I was that age, in that situation, it wasn't like that. I was comparing myself, and it was very negative. And I'm sure young people do it as well, where they look at what their peers have, and they can see the supercars, they can see the mansions, and they can see they're only 21 to 25 with all this money and maybe a lack of responsibility. But you know what I mean? Even if they do have responsibility, just the abundance of money, and it makes you feel like you're inadequate. I was definitely doing that at the time, but now I would look at it as, how did they do it? How can I ask questions and all the rest of it?
Because you know what? Amari, 15, I know he doesn't want to work. He doesn't. I've said to him, like, next year, like, you have your GCSEs in May, and then after that, like, you'll be 16. You got to start looking for a job. And he's now trying to buy things online and flip it. Yeah, these massage guns. Yeah, like, he's finding that him and his friends are finding them for. He's gonna hate me saying this. Yeah, they're buying them for like £5 on eBay, and they're selling them for like £30. And I'm like, what?
I love that.
I love it.
I love it. But I get what you mean.
But it's this thing of like, he gets money and he wants like a belt, or he wants like, his grandma was gonna buy him a £250 watch. And I'm like, the look, yeah. He was like, yeah, grandma's getting me a watch for Christmas. And I was like, oh, okay, what one? And he was like, I don't know, but there's a £250 limit. I'm like, nah, I'm not. Like, I'm trying to help build you up, and you're trying to figure out how to spend. Yeah. And it's a different mindset. And it's because he's seeing all of the people in his like peer group and the celebrities and all of that making this easy money, and he's like, oh, I should be doing that.
Yeah, I feel like it's not a bad thing as long as he's got let's say some guidance and some sort of plan into what he's doing. Because a lot of people that I've researched, basically,
man's always researching.
Yeah, you know me, bro.
That's good. I like that.
I don't remember, bro. I was gonna say a lot of people that I've seen, for example, business owners that don't actually establish or have a building for their business. They do online businesses. A lot of them buy cheap and sell for a certain price. So it's not a bad thing as long as he's not doing it just to buy the Louis belt or just to buy the pouch or the Gucci hat. You know what I mean?
I think in life you get to a point where you have to adjust what's your why. Because I remember times in life where, you know, you're hustling for things that you don't necessarily need, like materialism.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think when I was young, I used to flip trainers. Like, I'll buy Nike trainers, and then I'll sell them for more. I used to sell a lot of things on eBay, but the question is, what was I doing it for? And a lot of the time, you do it so you can get certain things. So I think he just needs to adjust his why and do it for the long term stuff, which is quite hard for a lot of young boys to do.
My biggest one of my biggest financial regrets as a kid, yeah, my nan gave me £500, yeah, and I was like 15, and I got £500, so I was like, all right, cool. Like, no one said save it, no one said do this. I loved NSYNC at the time. Yeah.
That's a bit of me still. That's a bit
Yeah.
of me.
And
What did you do?
I remember seeing Justin Timberlake, yeah, in this that Levi jean suit, yeah, and I was like, I need to get that. I
That is
I
funny.
spent a good £200 on the G Lean suit. Like literally, the whole £500 went out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And then I remember it only took me a few years to actually reflect and be like, I could have put that into something. Like, but that was my biggest. I was like, anything certain people were wearing, I was like, yeah, I need to get that. But,
I was gonna say that's a good way to wrap it up though. But in terms of like living situations and moving out of parents' house, as a man, I felt personally, I feel like move out as soon as possible. Don't try and rush it too much, and always have a plan. Really,
Is that what you would advise your younger self?
that's exactly what I'd advise my younger
Me
self.
too.
Just
I'd say have it in your sights from the time you're like 18. Have it in your sights and have something in place to get there. Like, don't kind of like we spoke about reaction and being reactive and proactive. Yeah, don't wait to get a girl pregnant and be like, I need to get a yard now. Like, allow yourself to have that plan in place from young, and as long as you got a plan in place, you'll eventually reach it.
good. But yeah, just like, comment, and subscribe, guys, and make sure you share. Take care.